Well, it's been a long time since I last did an insightful or foolish, but I want to focus on topics that do not have obvious agreement, and the general structure of the game has been somewhat quiet until link summoning came along. But then I had to wait for link summoning to flesh out a little to determine whether or not it would be suitable for a discussion. While there are various opinions regarding whether or not Master Rule 4 has helped or hurt the game overall, one of the initial thoughts regarding MR4 when it was first revealed was it was supposed to slow the game down. Yeah, that clearly did not happen. This belief of a slower game tempo sprung from the idea that spamming extra deck monsters would be made much more difficult by the addition of the single extra deck monster zone and the idea behind link monsters. Unfortunately, this idea was heavily undermined by the summons mechanism behind link summoning, where every monster suddenly gains some level of tuning capacity. There are a number of monsters that existed before link summoning that have high quality effects when they leave the field, especially those from earlier eras that lack hard once per turn conditions on those effects. However, the balancing factor of these effects involved the overall difficulty of actually getting those monsters from the field to the graveyard. Typically, waiting for the opponent to destroy them, especially in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, hurt the viability and usefulness of the effect, and hoping you had some form of specific removal was unreliable and sporadic, for field clearers like Dark Hole commonly did not work well to initiate combo strings, and single removal cards that affected your own field were typically not synergistic enough, creating inefficiency and were only single use, limiting explosiveness of the intended combo. However, enter MR4, and now with all monsters having some tuner capacity, the ability to remove them from the field consistently and continually, if need be, suddenly became commonplace, catalyzing all of these previously unreliable combos, making the game more explosive and creating a faster pace overall in the competitive meta. Effectively, MR4 did not slow the game down, but instead created a new tier structure for the various archetypes in the game where if said archetype could make use of existing link monsters, then it became more powerful and faster than it was prior to MR4. And if it could not, then it became much worse. So the game did not slow down, at least as mentioned from a standpoint of the competitive meta, but instead the number of viable and playable archetypes decreased considerably. One only has to look so far as Spirals and its interplay with Master Plan as evidence for this reality. For before Link summoning, almost nobody ran Master Plan, despite its overwhelmingly powerful effect, because again, the problems of actually getting it off the field. After Link summoning in MR4, now Master Plan is a de facto tuner of sorts. It's in every Spiral deck and is principally responsible for why they're so combo explosive. Despite this reality of Link summoning and the tuner capacity of all monsters, Konami still could have salvaged the spirit, in a sense, of MR4 of slowing the game down if it made smart card design choices relative to the strategic capacity of the game. Not surprisingly, this did not happen for two reasons. First, Konami frequently just makes bad card design choices, commonly making a card too powerful or too weak. Second, and more important to this point, too many Link monsters had generic summoning conditions over strict archetype specific summoning conditions and or effect application. This result is also not surprising because as a business, the idea of making powerful cards with generic summoning conditions that have almost been forcibly shoehorned into your game thanks to MR4 is smart because it makes those cards more viable in more decks, thus inducing more people to attempt to purchase boxes or packs in effort to getting those cards, thus making you more money. Makes sense. Unfortunately, making these cards generic made the game faster because now there are more cards that can be pulled from the extra deck with the new tuner capacity of every monster in the game. On a side note, in a sense, Konami has actually gone rather overboard with the generic standing of Link monsters, and if they want to get any level of control over this game back, I expect in the next 6 to 9 months, there will be more Link monsters on the ban list in some fashion than Fusion, Synchro, or XZ monsters combined. Overall, due to this card design choice, though, relative to the Link monsters and the new every monster can technically be a tuner standing of MR4, MR4 has actually increased the speed and combo potential of the competitive game. So, after that long but necessary, in my opinion, introduction, we come to the target, a new rule for the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Each player can only special summon one time per turn from each environment, sans the extra deck. From the extra deck, each player can only special summon one type of monster once per turn. So let's break down this new theoretical rule. Basically, the term environment represents the different non-field elements of the game: deck, hand, graveyard, pendulum zones, and banish zones. So the first sentence basically says that each player can only special summon one time from the deck, one time from the hand, one time from the graveyard, one time from the banish zone, one time from the pendulum zones, or one pendulum summons, which sans one particular card is already the rule, once per turn. For example, one could use machine duplication on Cyber Valley to special summon two more copies of Cyber Valley from the deck. But for the remainder of the turn, that player would not be able to special summon any other monsters from the deck. Note that for the purpose of this rule, pendulum summoning would be a unique type of summoning from the hand and would not count towards the limitation relative to hand special summoning. For example, one could pendulum summon and then ritual summon a monster from the hand during the same turn. Of course, there could be very specific exceptions as well to this rule, most notably involving kaijus. For example, under the rule as I've currently given it, you could only summon one kaiju to your opponent's field. However, if thought necessary, you could change the context of the rule to that you can only special summon to each side of the field from each environment once per turn, rather than just only special summon once per turn from each environment. Thereby, you could special summon a kaiju to your opponent's field from your hand. Now you special summon to your opponent's field. Now you can special summon a kaiju to your own field from your hand, and now you can't special summon any more from your hand, period. The second sentence should be rather self-explanatory, but to ensure clarity, it would not make sense to restrict extra deck summoning to once per turn, period. However, it would make more sense to restrict the summons of an extra deck monster to one particular type per turn. Basically, a player could special summon one fusion monster, one synchro monster, one XZ monster, and one link monster from the deck per turn. Overall, under my new theoretical rule, a player could special summon in a single turn a maximum number of 10 total times, if you exclude the idea of summoning to your opponent's side of the field. 6 times from non-extra deck environments: deck, hand, graveyard, banish zone, pendulum summon, and pendulum zone via a card effect like Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon, and 4 different extra deck monsters: one XZ, one Fusion, one Synchro, one Link. While 10 times seems like a lot, note that a vast majority of the long drawn-out combos that most players indulge in during the first turn of the game involve multiple summons from either the graveyard, deck, or extra deck, which would be significantly handicapped by this new rule. This rule would definitely slow the game down considerably, especially in the realm of archetypes. Yes, there are some deck designers that could attempt to go the Jackson Pollock route by throwing various cards together in one gigantic hodgepodge deck in an attempt to maximize explosiveness through this new rule, but it is unlikely that such a deck would be consistent enough to be anything but a casual deck. However, while this rule would do a lot to restore the strategic value of the game, in addition to reducing the role of luck, opening your broken combo versus not opening your broken combo, and the reduction of luck, in my opinion, should be a very high priority in all card games, The question really is, how would players respond if such a rule change occurred? Now, I can see some players not liking such a rule change because of the loss of these big combo strings. From a personal standpoint, I can see the allure of these combos in the initial discovery phase. The creativity and joy of discovering some crazy, never seen before 25 cards from the deck, 9 monsters from the extra deck combo, just starting with only 3 cards. However, I certainly cannot understand players that enjoy either playing with or playing against these combos in a significant competitive or even casual environment. Also, the nature of these combos significantly enhances the role of luck in the game, as I alluded to earlier, which certainly is not fun, nor does it present an accurate indicator to determining the better players in the game. Heck, this reality can be seen during the new Spiral format, both pre and post emergency ban list. The common competitive sentiment is that if you're going second and you don't open either Ghost Dash or Droll and Lockbird against a Spiral deck, the probability of you winning is basically non existent. And who finds that fun? Overall, and not surprisingly, because this is my idea, I think this new theoretical rule would be a major boon to the game through the reduction of luck and increase in strategical value of the game. Basically, under this new rule, the better players would have a higher probability of winning versus how the current game operates. And in a sense, test of skill, which Yu-Gi-Oh at its heart is supposed to be, that's a good thing. The people who are better at the game should have higher probabilities of winning. However, it is understandable that such restrictions would reduce the explosive combo uniqueness of the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, which may draw some players into this game versus a game like Magic the Gathering. Granted, the probability of this type of rule or anything resembling it actually coming to pass in the actual game is incredibly low, but for the sake of argument, what do you viewers think? Am I being insightful or am I being foolish in this proposition?